Turn with me this morning, if you would, please, to Philippians chapter 2. Philippians chapter 2. And before we start in the first verse, I want to kind of remind us to set the stage. The book of Philippians represents one of the prison epistles, which is a letter of Paul to one of the churches that he had founded. I want you to please remember, as we look at this, the state of Paul's condition. Paul was not someplace in creature comfort. He was not living the high life. In fact, he's probably one of his lowest of lows. Once again, 4 weeks now we've been here. We find someone going through struggles in the midst of doing the right thing. Oh, that's a theme for us. It's on purpose. Remember King Jehoshaphat. He was doing what? The right thing when trouble came knocking at his door. You remember what happened with the apostles as it was with Jesus crossing over and the storm came. They were doing the right thing when the storm came and almost capsized their boats. We remember, as we talked about last week, you find continuously the same thing. Solomon was doing what? The right thing. And what did God say to him? I know you're doing the right thing, but let me remind you what you need to be thinking about when times of trouble comes. Jesus told his disciples, he says, in this world, you will have trouble. You will have trials, you will have temptations, you will have things that will hit your life that are bigger than you. But Jesus also said, but don't be discouraged. One reason I'm with you, and secondly, I'm an overcomer. That's why if you go back and look later in this epistle, you'll find that Paul says, I have learned something. He called it a mystery. He called it a secret. And I submit to you, it is a mystery or a secret of life. He said, whether I am well fed or hungry, no matter what my state of condition might be, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. If we could, but for a minute, embrace the attitude here of understanding that in this world things are always not going to work out. And sometimes trouble will come. Hear me. You may say, I'm being a nice person. I'm in the midst of doing right. A struggle or a challenge can still come knocking on your door. Paul found himself in prison, writing a letter, note this, of what encouragement, right in the very state of his dire circumstances. How do you don't have to answer this, because I know you don't have a problem with this. I know you do this well. So I'll just point it this way. How do you think I act and respond when things aren't going well? I'm a real encourager right then, aren't I? Because I know you are. I know you have no problem when things aren't going well. I know you don't even think about yourself. But some of us have to work on that a little bit. Some of us need to remember that it's not your own strength that's going to help you get through your circumstances. Because as Paul said, I can do all things through what? Through Christ. So, quickly, starting in verse 1 of chapter 2 of Philippians. Here's how he says we're to respond. Listen to him. If you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if you have any comfort from his love, if you have any fellowship with the Spirit. Now, please note this. He didn't say here if you have a lot of friends. Because no, he didn't say, hey, if you got this big following on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all the other thingamajiggers. No, he said if you are united with what? With Christ. He didn't say you get your comfort from the love of the world. If you get your love from him. Any fellowship with the Spirit. In other words, he's saying here, we talked about this last week, didn't we? Talked about, it's that, remember that seeking after him? It's that little boy or girl that's lost in the grocery store because they look around all of a sudden and they don't see their mom and dad. Remember that story? Now it's no longer about being in the grocery store, it's about finding your child. All of a sudden, the world does what? Stops, because now there's something that is more important that you now, with all your heart, long for to resolve. That kind of relationship. That's what gives you that united with Christ, that find the comfort of his love. It's when your attitude, your mindset will allow the world to stop. My devotion. I've got several on my phone that I've been following. Right focused. Been just dealing with, see, you don't have, dealing with stuff. Stuff can sometimes overwhelm you. Okay. We talked about awfulizing. Remember about awfulizing? It's a drizzle, but now you think the flood's coming. We talked about that fear that doesn't transition to what? Faith, right? Little reminder here, right? Okay. We talked about those kind of things can happen, right? And they do, okay? But if you aren't careful, you will find yourself lost there. And you will forget. Well, I thought about it last night. I'm in the bed, ready to go to sleep, and you know, Margaret's on Margaret's time zone, and I'm on Bruce's time zone. So we got this long story anyway. So I'm laying there, and I go to my little devotion on my phone. This before I go to sleep. And I go to it, and it says, I forget the date, February 21st. Tomorrow's today. It's March 1st. I've missed some days. Why? Because some of the things I was worried about are not in the forefront of my mind now. It's not fully resolved, but it's better. And I thought, you Israelite. I said, what? Okay, brother, we're talking about that. My how you are when you're in trouble, you all of a sudden run and you seek God's face, and as soon as things seem a little bit better, you drift back to your same old habits, you Israelite you.
Yes, that's right.
But we do that, don't we? Oh, when trouble's all in your face, boy, we run to get that comfort, and thank God we know to do that. But as soon as things seem like the skies are getting a little bit more blue and the sun's peeking out, then all of a sudden we got to go back to our same old way. I got the, thank you, Lord, I got it now. That will keep you from being what we are talking about here. So he says again, if any tenderness from compassion, listen what he says in verse 2, then make my joy complete. By doing what? Be like-minded. Okay. Be like-minded. My spouse and I are not perfect. Far from it. Okay? I'll tell you about this before. I'm a smooth jazz rock kind of guy. If you listen to my podcast, you're going to hear somebody named Greg Howe. Who in the world is that? Amazing guitarist. Okay, you're going to hear, you get in Margaret's car, and you turn it on, Motown. I mean, literally, it's old school soul Motown. Brother, don't that need to be kind of flipped? Just saying, for the people who kind of know that couple, like, there's a little something different there going on. Now, maybe we need to have a talk with that brother. You know, something. Motown. Loud, too, boy. We come home from church sometime, and if I'm on the driveway, I hear it coming up, that coming up. Boom, 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 boom. can be in the car. This is the truth. I'm riding along. I'll call on the phone. Riding along. Hey, how you doing? Fine. Yeah, I think chicken, sir. Yeah, I think chicken would be good tonight. Okay. Am I right or wrong about it? That's synced up. Because there's this like-mindedness. What's my point? It doesn't mean everything you like, I like. It doesn't mean every opinion is going to be the same as your opinion. But it's going to be this common thread, this common theme where we're on the same page. And the things of God, he expects for us to be on the what? The same page. There's certain things that should be what's called non-negotiable. One is humility. Then another is compassion. Another is agape love. No record of wrong. Hopes all things. Bears all things. Those things, forgiveness. Those that be non-negotiable terms. And so when he says this here about making his joy complete, he's telling them that. He says, verse 2, then make my joy complete by being what? Being like-minded. See, listen, I didn't make this up. Having the same what? Love. Note this, being one in spirit and in purpose. Verse 3, because here is the probleme. I don't know where it came from, it just did. Verse 3. Here is the problem. If you look at your families, if you look at your relationships, if you look at where there's going to be conflict, you can pick it, you can ask a parent, you can ask a teacher, you can ask a coach, you can ask whatever the venue, whatever the setting, where you can ask a professor, wherever there are people gathered together and there is conflict. At the root, you're going to find verse 3. Do nothing out of selfish ambition and vain conceit. When the unholy trinity steps in the room, there's going to be nothing but chaos. Don't forget that. The Holy Trinity, God the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, the unholy is me, myself, and I. And when people walk into a situation and they can have that appearance of godliness, I have a genteel spirit. I'm here for the circumstances and for the success of this. But when their agenda or driver is me, myself, and I, you're going to find the results will be this situation here, where there will be this selfish ambition and vain conceit, and there nothing can prosper. This is Paul's direction to the church. He's saying for them to be healthy. He's saying, don't forget, where is he? In where? Prison. Their prisons did not have air conditioning, did not have cell phones, they don't have cell phones. Well, they do. If you got a back door, you get a cell phone, they say in the prison, that's another story. They don't have no creature comforts, no going to the gym, no walking out in the sunshine, all these things we have, nothing like that. Their prisons were dungeons, holes in the ground, rats infested. The only way you got food and clothing was if somebody brought it to you. Many didn't make it out. In fact, Paul talked about being sick when he was there and being thankful and asking for a coat to be brought to him for the comfort he needed, because that was the only provisions that would come into his life. That man, then, if you could keep that in context and listen to what he's saying he wants their joy to be. He didn't say, if you would come visit me, he says, I will be encouraged in my dire situation if I know you're just doing one thing, getting along with one another. because he knew how critical that was to God working in their circumstances. And beloved, I'm here today to tell you, if you want to see God working in your circumstances, you need to choose to get along with whomever else is in that circumstance with you. That needs to be your highest priority. The way you're willing to serve someone else, not for your benefit, not so that somebody will say what you've done, but to truly be a blessing in the life of that person that you are serving. He says, do nothing, okay? But listen, but there's that conjunction, the contrast, the transition. But here it is, in what? In humility. Don't miss that. In humility, consider. Don't miss that. We got it, brother. I'm not sure you do. In humility, consider others better than yourselves. Not academically. Oh no. You know what humility does? Humility is from where it goes from the mental consciousness to the compassion of the heart to the action of the hands. So we do a lot of talking. It gets here. The problem is it leaks out here. It never gets to here. If it doesn't get from here to here, you'll never see it here. That's why those sayings, talk is cheap. But when humility kicks in, the reality is there's probably been a whole lot of talking. But finally we get to the point of saying, that's not enough. And we allow it to get from here to here. And when it gets to here, you start seeing it here. And when it comes here, you're to the point now where you have truly surrendered to let God use you as a vessel. And I promise you, not because I'm saying it, because God promised it, the day you choose to let what you know be what you do, because it got from here, past here, to be shown here, there will be radical change. Because all of a sudden now, because if it goes from here to here, you're the victim. You're telling everybody what's wrong and how nothing's working out right. When it goes from here to here, you're the vessel. Because now you choose to let God use you. It's not about who sees you. It's not about who knows what you're doing. Nobody saw Paul.
That's right.
Nobody knew what he was doing because it was a bad situation. But God used him because he let it get from here to here. And in his case, it was a scribing of a letter to be sent to them that here we are now at this day and time still talking about something a man did in a hole in the ground because he chose to let God use him. I dare you. I dare you to surrender yourself in whatever situation you're going through that has your back against the wall. I dare you to truly, truly serve your enemy. To bless the ones who you, hear me, that you know have an ulterior motive against you. And watch God show out. Consider yourselves, each verse 4 of you. And see, he's not saying you to flip it. He's not saying you, listen, see, because some of us we're way over here or we're way over here. We're just swinging back and forth, swinging. Each of us should look not only at your own interests. So I want you to be careful. You don't divorce yourself of your interests. Let me leave you with this. Something like that. This is mine. And I'm going to ask you this. In your interactions with others, do you have your defined boundaries? If you look at in the home, if you look at in the relationship with my spouse, that's my inner circle. That's where what's mine is hers and what's hers is mine. I even give her the passwords to my accounts, so that's a big deal. The inner circle says here, you can have my phone. Because there's nothing hidden. It's the inner circle. But then there's one layer removed from that. That next boundary out. That boundary is one where those are your friends and your acquaintances. Those are people who may be your boo, your friend, whatever. I don't know what boo means, but I hear it used a lot nowadays, or whatever that is, okay? You say boo to me, I think it's spooking somebody. Boo. Anyway, I'm old. Those are the ones where you'd allow them to come to your house, in a circle to an extent, and you allow them to go to the restroom or whatever freely. You're not going to escort them there, but you wouldn't give you keys. But they're welcomed. They're relational. There's that boundary. And then there's the outer boundary. And the outer boundary is everybody else and everything else. In every relationship, in every encounter, and in those are your acquaintances, associates. You don't really hang out together. You're not really there, but you know them in passing, or maybe a stranger that you meet. That's kind of a blurred area. Be careful that you don't let that in the outer boundary be treated like they're part of your inner circle. Because it takes time, trust, relationship. And just like with Jesus, that inner circle was very small. It was the 12 apostles that made up that inner circle. So what he says here is, yes, you're to go to the outer boundaries to meet the need of those who you know or who you may not know. That you may work to bring them into that next area of experience of your life, where now you may invest in them and care and try to help them and walk alongside them. But there's still this guarding of your heart. There's this guarding of that inner circle of your life. The psalmist said, guard your heart. You want to be very sensitive to that inner circle of your life. In other words, don't be foolish. So when we talk about that reaching out, meeting the needs, in every relationship, every encounter, ask yourself, define what those boundaries are. And what criteria is required to get to the most inner point. That inner point one is oneness. And it's usually a husband and a wife and a family. That's that inner circle. Yes, I thought about that drinking coffee this morning, but it's okay. Each of you should not only listen to this, think about your own desires, but also the interest of others. I want to ask you today, when you leave here, to think about, to consider humility. Well, you don't have to be Mr. Right or Mrs. Right. You're not worried about if somebody said, look what I did. You just desire to be a vessel that meets the need. Because that's what will allow that ambition to go from here, past here, to here, to here. What circumstances are you dealing with today? To where we, like Paul, can make Christ's joy complete by living this life he spoke of. We have opportunities today. I encourage you to consider taking them. If any one of you have encouragement from being united with Christ, any comfort from his love, any fellowship with his Spirit, if any tenderness, compassion, listen to those attributes, then do something. Make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and in purpose. Might want to start that with your inner circle. And boy, that will do nothing but permeate into every opportunity that you have.